A Justice Department showdown. House Intelligence Committee Chairman DAVINE Nunes now says talks with the Justice Department about handing over classified documents related to Robert Mueller's Russia probe will continue, calling discussions with officials productive. This is the Washington Post reports that the subpoena issued last week requested documents about a specific individual described as a longtime intelligence source for the CIA and the FBI. For his part, House Speaker Paul Ryan is backing Nunes' request.
I think this request is wholly appropriate. It's completely within the scope of the investigation that's been ongoing for a while with respect to FISA. I actually think that this is something that probably should have been answered a while ago. I've spoken with Chairman Gowdy. I've spoken with Chairman Nunes. I've spoken with the Deputy Attorney General on this. I expect that we will be able to have an accommodation.
The Justice Department says complying with Nunes' request could endanger the lives of intelligence sources. Joining us right now to weigh in on all of this is former U.S. Attorney, partner at Avenue Strategies, Bud Cummins. Bud, it's good to see you this morning. Thanks so much for joining us.
Good morning.
So this has been over a year since Nunes is requesting these documents. He had to subpoena them, and they're still pushing back. Do you think Nunes ultimately gets his hands on these documents?
You know, it's hard to say because it sounds like they have articulated a legitimate concern about the safety or of revealing the identity of this source. And when that's a real concern, it's a real concern.
Yeah, but
and Rod Rosenstein and the DOJ has an obligation.
I don't know if you saw an op-ed in the Journal yesterday about this. The editorial board wrote, basically, the Washington Post had all the details of who this source was. That, you know, that he leaked. And it just seemed like somebody leaked some information to the Washington Post. The story that this is such an important source and we cannot give it up because it's going to be national security. Meanwhile, the Washington Post had all these details about this source. So I don't know. The Journal op-ed was basically not buying it.
Too often the Department of Justice is hidden behind that, you know, oh, we can't reveal this because people will get killed. And so their credibility when they assert those kind of vague defenses about disclosing things, you know, you're always skeptical about it. But if it's real, it's real. And it sounds like Chairman Gowdy and Chairman Nunes took a little bit of a step back after they met with him. So maybe they are convinced that there is some legitimacy to the concern. I think they'll work it out. And they have, you know, we have to all recognize that everything that gets to those committees is immediately in the media. So you have to assume that whatever they do hand over to them is going to be disclosed. So the IG report, and that's a nonpartisan issue.
You would think it is, Bud. You would think that everybody would be on the same side here. That we want justice and we don't want bias and we want independent thinking at the FBI and the DOJ. But it is a head scratcher that it's been so long that the DOJ has sat on these documents. Now, this is a specific case about a specific individual, but this doesn't speak to what has gone on for the last year, where they have, in fact, been stonewalling. We've got a forthcoming IG report on tap. We're expecting it in the month of May. What do you think it says in terms of Jim Comey and the handling of the Hillary Clinton email investigation?
I think it's going to say that it was handled irregularly. I think it's going to say that they can't reconcile their actions there with anything they've done since or before, and I think it's going to unavoidably demonstrate that they were kind of in the bag for Hillary before the thing ever got off the ground.
Yeah, but I mean, already we know that Andrew McCabe saw a referral of criminal charges. Do you think we'll see a referral of criminal charges in this IG report, perhaps on Jim Comey? I mean, when will we see any accountability for all of this?
Well, that's the question, and you and I have had this discussion before. In my view, you know, getting people charged criminally, ruining people's lives, making them mortgage their houses to hire lawyers should not be our goal. Our goal is to know what happened. We're entitled to the truth. And here we are a year, 2 years later, and we're still trying to even just find out the basic facts of how this started. We've got this investigation that seems to be going on, and nobody can even articulate a crime that they're probably investigating, a legitimate crime. And so I think they have to find a way to come to the people and say, this is why we still are moving on in this investigation. And they need to come forward and explain in a comprehensive way how it started and how the mistakes were made. You know, putting people in prison or making them hire lawyers is really shouldn't be the goal. The goal should be the truth. And I'm very frustrated that somebody doesn't have the ability to kind of have a come to Jesus moment like, Wilford Brimley at the end of Absence of Malice, and just get everybody in the room and say, what happened here?
Yeah.
How did we get here? And what's the justification for going forward?
And the chairman of the Intel committee, DAVINE Nunes, is also investigating the State Department. Look, let's not act like this is all different stories. This is the same issue that has been going on now for a year, and the Congress is investigating two things. Number one, the investigation of the Hillary Clinton email situation and how that was handled by the FBI and the DOJ, and at the same time, the investigation of Donald Trump and how an investigation was launched looking at potential collusion between the president and Russia. And when we look at both of these, they were handled very differently. This is what Congress is looking at. This is why they want the documents. This is why they're trying to get to the bottom of this. And what DAVINE Nunes told us is they launched that investigation, Bud, with no intelligence.
That's right.
No reason to launch this narrative.
DOJ's never been perfect, but it has a history of trying to put on blinders to the politics and make neutral decisions and investigate neutrally. I think there's been a trend, with all of these instances, and frankly, we see it in investigations all over the country, of this heavy-handed approach, and apparently decisions made about whether the investigators like a person they're looking at, and if they don't, they just keep going and try to throw enough mud on the wall until they finally get somebody to cave in. That's what they're doing here in this investigation. But frankly, it's a technique they use in other places, and somebody needs to rein it in and get them more focused on their original mission. And the politicians need to try to quit manipulating the Department of Justice in various ways. But it's not illegitimate for them to get in there and try and figure out what happened here, because it's not neutral law enforcement.
Especially since it's supposed to be co-equal powers, Congress and the DOJ. And these committees are supposed to oversee the intelligence agencies. So it is a legitimate request, but the stonewalling continues. We'll see. Nunes and Trey Gowdy said that they had a good meeting with DOJ officials, and they think that they'll get the documents. We'll see. But America is watching,
Well, I hope they work that out, but I hope that they find a way to come and tell us why we're still here.
Right.
And because nobody seems to know.
You're right.
Nobody seems. Tell me, what's the crime? Tell me the crime.
Exactly. And why are we still talking about Russia collusion, by the way?
Yeah,
but it's good to see you. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Bud Cummins joining us there.
I have great respect for the process, but in all fairness, President Obama, paid $1.8 billion for hostages. You, not me, you, last night you saw it, Kim Jong-un did a great service to himself, to his country by doing this. But those hostages came out with respect. We didn't pay for them.
Just something the president was talking about last night in Elkhart, Indiana.
That's right. Let's bring in Diamond and Silk social media stars and Trump supporters. Good morning, ladies.
Good morning.
Good morning. What's your reaction to that? The president said he did something that President Obama could never do. He brought home our hostages for free.
Well, the president is absolutely correct. Obama paid billions for hostages. He traded off terrorists for American hostages, but President Trump didn't have to do that. Obama, I know he's upset because he thinks that his legacy is being tarnished, but his legacy didn't have a leg to stand on.
That's right.
President Trump didn't waver. He didn't back down. He didn't mince his words. And look, we have Americans back on our soil where they belong.
Why do you both feel like they won't? Some on the left and the so-called mainstream media still won't give them any credit. They're saying, this approach in North Korea isn't going to work. Why won't they ever do that?
Because they're envious, because they're jealous, because he's been able to do in between 16 to 18 months what Obama could not do in 8 years. That's why they won't give him credit. Listen, this president is not to be played with. There's a new sheriff in town. We call him President Donald J. Trump, and he is not playing. He's going to get the job done, and they are envious and jealous because they could never do that.
That's right.
Well, ladies, you're down in Washington, D.C. This week they've been having the confirmation hearings for Gina Haspel to be the next CIA director. The whole conversation has turned to enhanced interrogation and waterboarding, which now the government doesn't do. But listen to this. Here's Whoopi Goldberg yesterday on The View with the plan for POTUS.
Remember how the gentleman in the White House talked about torture on the campaign trail? What I'd like to say is I would like you to try it. I think people who have actually been tortured, who are saying this is not a good thing, you should listen to them because you have never been tortured, and neither has Dick Cheney.
So what do you think?
Well, you know, why don't Whoopi Goldberg try it? She needs to try respecting the president of the United States is what she needs to try to do. The president of the United States is not a terrorist. He's an American. He's our president. So why would we waterboard him? If she want to try what waterboarding feels like, why don't she do it? Another thing, why don't she champion around Gina Haspel to make sure that she gets this position? Because wouldn't she be the first woman in this position? So you should be championing around this woman that's going to get this high position is what you should be doing.
That's right.
All right. Let's talk a little bit about the Garden State. Pete and I live there, and now, ladies, as it turns out, we are subsidizing things for illegal aliens because the Garden State is now allowing for illegal aliens to apply for state financial aid at the universities. And here's the best part. For instance, at Rutgers, which is just across the river from where we're sitting, down a couple of miles, illegals can qualify for in-state tuition. Not in the country legally, but they get in-state tuition.
You know, I think that's very sad. And who's paying for this? American tax dollars. What about the American students? What about American people that goes to school that have to pay student loans until they're about 50 or 60 years old? Yet we allow people to cross our borders illegally. That's right. And now we give them handouts like grants for them to go to college. What about the American people? I think it's sad. I think it's sick. I think every American that goes to college should be outraged and speak out about this.
And they committed their first crime whenever they cross that border illegally. When an American citizen do something illegally, they are given 3 hots and a cop behind a locked cell block. Not no funding.
Ladies, what are you doing in Washington today?
Oh, we was in Washington for an event last night with Sarah Palin.
Yes, it was
Governor
amazing.
Sarah Palin,
It was amazing.
Very cool.
All right, ladies, have a great weekend. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.